समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The monsoon session of Parliament is on right now and the business end has started. What do I mean by business end? That the most important debate, questioning and argumentation for India at this point is now taking place. It's 3 months too late, but Parliament meets when Parliament meets. This is the debate on Op Sindoor. Op Sindoor, which followed the horrible massacre at Pahalgam. On the first day, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh opened the debate on part of the government, and then Gaurav Gogoi led the counter from the opposition, and others spoke also. And as we go ahead, more will speak, including Rahul Gandhi, leader of the opposition, and hopefully Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well. So this will go on. These 3 days, it's possible, likely, at least 2 days, this will be our subject of discussion. Maybe it will go on for 3 days, depending on what the quality of this debate is. The beginning today was promising. And the reason it was so important today was that 2 key ministers spoke. That is the Defence Minister, Rajnath Singh. After all, Op Sindoor was a military operation, tri-service operation. And then S. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister, because there was a very large diplomatic dimension to this before, during, and after. So he spoke about that also in detail. We will pick and choose some aspects or some issues because this is an ongoing debate. Both houses of parliament, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, have allocated 16 hours each. So it's going to be a marathon at both houses of parliament. We'll keep track of that and keep bringing back to you the complexities that emerge. However, what I'm focusing on today is 2 things. One thing that the Defence Minister said, Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh. And the second, in conclusion, what S. Jaishankar said. In conclusion of his speech, he listed the 5 takeaways of Indian policy now towards Pakistan. The 5-point Indian policy towards Pakistan, that is important to look at. However, when I look at what Rajnath Singh said, it connects with many points in our history of trying to find peace with Pakistan. So he said, and I quote from his speech, he said, "Be it Lal Bahadur Shastri, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Manmohan Singh or Narendra Modi, everyone has wished for peace and prosperity in the region. This matches our civilizational values." I'm a little bit surprised, maybe not so surprised, that he did not mention Jawaharlal Nehru and also that he did not mention Indira Gandhi in this list, but those may just be unintended because the fact is that every Indian Prime Minister, from Jawaharlal Nehru to Narendra Modi now, has made at least one serious attempt at finding lasting peace with Pakistan, because all of them have acknowledged the fact that you can't choose your neighbors. This is your neighbor, you have to live with it. And if you have issues, you have to find a solution or resolution to those issues. All of them have failed so far, and that is what has brought us to this situation. So what does Rajnath Singh say? He says that the entire world knows that former PM Vajpayee did the Lahore bus yatra carrying the message of peace. It wasn't just a yatra, it was a symbol of India's culture and peace. It was India's nature. After reaching Lahore, what Vajpayee wrote at Minare, Pakistan is discussed even today, and that's the important one. We published just the other day from my colleague Swasti Rao, Dr. Swasti Rao, who's our consulting editor, in her weekly show, Geopolitics with Swasti. And she said a stable Pakistan is in India's interest, and that evoked a lot of response on social media, a lot of angry response on social media. You can also imagine, because the mood in the country has changed now. That reaction also showed that the mood in India has now changed. And truth to tell, Pakistan is solely responsible for this. What she was saying there is exactly what Vajpayee had written at Minar-e-Pakistan in Lahore. See the picture? That's like the symbol of the new republic that the Pakistanis built. So he walked up the steps of Minar-e-Pakistan. I was there. A lot of Indian press was there. He walked up and he wrote there, and I'm quoting from Rajnath Singh's speech today, from Minar-e-Pakistan, I want to assure the citizens of Pakistan that India wants stability and friendship. I have said this earlier and repeated, Rajnath Singh saying that, I have said it earlier and repeated, that a stable and prosperous Pakistan is in India's interest. There should be no doubt over it. And then Rajnath Singh says, that was our move for peace. This move had come from our 1,000-year-old cultural consciousness, moral strength, and the civilizational values that believe peace is power. But our effort for peace was considered naivety, act of kindness. When we were initiating a move for peace, at that time Pakistan was hatching a conspiracy to infiltrate Kargil. And then he goes on talking about some other attempts at peace also in the Vajpayee era. Rajnath Singh also mentioned in his speech that there were occasions under Atal Bihari Vajpayee that India faced nuclear threats and blackmail from Pakistan, and that Vajpayee had then said that, look, if you use any nuclear weapons, then what I can guarantee is that next morning, there'll be nobody in Pakistan to see the sunrise. And after, also we know that Prime Minister Modi, soon after he became Prime Minister, in December 2015, broke journey in Pakistan. It was a surprise to everybody, including his own foreign policy team. He did not consult them. It was an instinctive decision because he also wanted to find permanent, durable peace with Pakistan. Within weeks of that, we know that the Pathankot air base attack took place because the powers that be in Pakistan do not want peace. However, that has not stopped Indian prime ministers and leaders from trying to get peace from Pakistan. That's the reason I thought I'll pick up this thread and tell you a story about Sharm el Sheikh joint declaration between Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and the Pakistani Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani of then Pakistan People's Party. This was quite a new government in Pakistan, Pakistan People's Party. Now, this joint declaration led to a lot of criticism and anger in India, including within the Congress party, which rebelled against this agreement. Now, this agreement was today also mentioned by S. Jaishankar, who read out some lines of this agreement to say there were problems with this agreement and it is your government, looking at the opposition, that signed this agreement. And I wrote it then that just this joint declaration led Dr. Manmohan Singh to lose so much of his political capital so soon under UPA 2. Now, what is it about Sharm el Sheikh agreement that got both the opposition as well as the Congress party itself, the Congress party establishment, which did not like Dr. Manmohan Singh anyway, nevertheless, because they did not like his economic policies, they did not like his approach to foreign policy, they did not particularly like the nuclear deal with the US because Congress party had built its politics over the decades on anti-Americanism. But he had defied them to get his deal through and they were looking for an opportunity to fix him. This Sharm el Sheikh agreement became that opportunity to fix him, and that's when many people from the Congress party stood up, including Vijay Singh, and said the party will not accept this declaration. Now, there is a lot of mythology about this, and one of which is that India agreed that there was terrorism in Balochistan, or that India was involved in terrorism in Balochistan, and they will help Pakistan investigate it, and thereby an equivalence was found between what's happening in Kashmir Valley, and what's happening in Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, and Balochistan. The facts are a little bit different, so that clutter we need to remove right now because that agreement is with me. You can see it on your screens. It's a very short declaration. It's just one printed page with lots of spaces between the lines. It's not very much. So what is it that got people upset? So first of all was the line which says both leaders agreed that terrorism is the main threat to both countries. That is what triggered people, and that is what Jaishankar also underlined today, that you signed an agreement with Pakistan saying terrorism is a threat to both countries. So you agreed to equating the victim with the perpetrator. And then he used this to make the larger argument that you say that we are being hyphenated with Pakistan by the Americans, by so and so. He didn't exactly say by the Americans. I'm simplifying it. He said, you keep saying that we've allowed ourselves to be hyphenated with Pakistan. It is you, in this case, the Congress party, UPA government, it is you who hyphenated India with Pakistan by saying India and Pakistan are both victims of terrorism. So this was one thing that got people upset. Then it goes on to say both leaders affirmed their resolve to fight terrorism and cooperate with each other to this end. Then there is a line later on. Then there is a line later on. The other key thing there is the sixth para. This is the sixth para. See it on your screen. This is just about a 10 para joint declaration, joint statement. It is not an agreement. It is not a treaty. No, it is just a joint statement. So para 6, and Jaishankar again said that this was very problematic, and I will explain to you why. I will read out this para to you first of all. Both prime ministers recognized that dialogue is the only way forward. Action on terrorism, now mark my words and see these as underlined. In fact, we'll have these underlined on your screens also as I speak. Action on terrorism should not be linked to the composite dialogue. Not as important. Action on terrorism should not be linked to the composite dialogue process, and these should not be bracketed. Prime Minister Singh said that India was ready to discuss all issues with Pakistan, including all outstanding issues. Now, this joint declaration did not mention the Kashmir issue. But when you say it twice in the same sentence, all issues with Pakistan, including all outstanding issues, everybody knows what you're talking about. Everybody can read that much of English language, and that got people upset. And that is what Jaishankar underlined today as the biggest failure in the UPA's policy in dealing with Pakistan. This is the government speaking now. The opposition will also speak. And this, he said, was within months of the 26/11 attacks, which had taken place in November 2008. This was 16th of July 2009. So not even a year had passed since the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai. The other line that got people very upset in this agreement is just a line. It's a bland line. There's nothing said by the Indian side here. It says, Prime Minister Gilani mentioned that Pakistan has some information on threats in Balochistan and other areas. It doesn't say that India agreed to look at these. But you know what? In this one, first of all, it was said that both sides are victims of terrorism. Not just India, and Pakistan is the perpetrator, and Pakistan will catch terrorists. Second, it says that India agreed to continue dialogue on all issues, including all outstanding issues, which would imply the Kashmir issue as well. And third, it said that dialogue will continue. Composite dialogue means you talk about trade, you talk about transit, you talk about visas, you talk about Sir Creek, Siachen, etc., and keep the big elephant in the room, which is Kashmir. That dialogue, that composite dialogue will carry on even if terrorism goes on. And that is what became a big issue. And that Sharm el Sheikh joint declaration was dead on arrival. Now let me try and put this in perspective. I said earlier that every Indian Prime Minister has tried to make peace with Pakistan. Jawaharlal Nehru, he engaged in negotiations with Pakistan on the Kashmir issue and appointed Sardar Swaran Singh specially as his envoy to discuss with Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was the foreign minister of Pakistan. But his brief for a long time was to just stall, because that round of negotiations had started under duress, under pressure, because it was in the shadow of the war with China, and India needed America's, which means the West's help in dealing with China. And India's concern was that a two-front war should not break out. That means if the Chinese were attacking India, then Pakistani should not start something at their end. Now, there was pressure on India. All right, we will lean on the Pakistanis to make sure they do not take advantage of this situation, but you agree to engage in dialogue with Pakistan on the Kashmir issue. That's when Jawaharlal Nehru assigned Sardar Swaran Singh to be his envoy, special envoy to negotiate these issues, Kashmir issues, with Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. And Swaran Singh stalled it for so long that finally Bhutto got exasperated. And Bhutto said, listen, partition was that Muslim majority states should go in one direction, Hindu majority states in the other, at least contiguous Muslim majority states will go in one direction, that is Kashmir. So why don't you just let go of Kashmir and things will be okay? And Sardar Swaran Singh reputedly said in his fully Punjabi English that I am proud of, he said, we cannot do that, Bhutto Sahab, because India is a secular country, right? India is a secular country. So that is how he stalled it. But the fact is that he wanted lasting peace. And the Indus Waters Agreement, Indus Waters Treaty was a step in that direction. So he made a big favor to Pakistan, hoping that that will get peace for him with Pakistan and a settlement to the Kashmir issue, but he failed. Then we know Indira Gandhi, she won a war. Shimla Agreement, she thought that would settle the problem because many things had to happen following on Shimla Agreement. Because many things had to follow after the Shimla Agreement, that was the spirit. That did not happen. The moment Bhutto came back and touched Pakistan's soil, he had begun to resile on the Shimla Agreement and in fact had started to prepare to build a nuclear weapon. Because he wanted to come back at India with a Pakistan much stronger than before for revenge and for redemption. So Mrs. Gandhi failed there. Morarji Desai tried doing his own thing, so much so that Zia-ul Haq honored him with Nishan-e Pakistan, the highest honor in the country. To date, I have not quite figured out why that was done, but it was done. It was a government where Vajpayee was the foreign minister, external affairs minister, and Mr. Advani was I&B minister. Then Rajiv Gandhi, he met Pakistani leaders multiple times. Benazir Bhutto famously in December 1988 during the SAARC summit in what was called as the honeymoon summit, right? In that summit meeting when he and Benazir met, ISI had bugged the room and later recordings of their conversation were released. In fact, just a couple of days back when I was preparing to talk about Cambodia and Thailand, and I read about Cambodian President Hun Sen recording his call with then Thai Prime Minister Petang Torn Shenawatra, and putting that recording on his Facebook page. I recalled that these recordings of Benazir's conversations with Rajiv Gandhi had also been released to the darker sections of Pakistani media, right? And there she also spoke critically of the Pakistan army, saying, look, I have limited room for maneuver, etc. I have to deal with them. In spite of them, we have to do certain things, etc., etc., etc. So Rajiv Gandhi made his own effort. After that, we'll not look at short-term prime ministers, and Mr. Gujral was there always trying to make peace with Pakistan as external affairs minister or briefly prime minister. But Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he made not one or two, but 3 efforts to make peace with Pakistan in spite of many setbacks. Now that is a whole detailed story which I'll tell you about some other days. So please do bookmark that because I will tell you that story in some detail at some point of time. Then Dr. Manmohan Singh, he neatly picked up the baton in this relay race from Vajpayee and continued on with the same process with Musharraf. And in the post-Musharraf era, he made his last attempt at finding peace with Pakistan. That was this Sharm el Sheikh, ill-fated and ill-drafted Sharm el Sheikh declaration. After that, as we know, Mr. Modi also tried and that failed. And since then, I know it's a much used term, since then a new normal has developed. It did not emerge from somewhere. It has developed over it did not emerge from somewhere. It has developed over almost a decade now. So 2016 were the surgical strikes after the Uri terror attack on a brigade headquarters. Then 2019 was the bombing at Balakot, deep inside Pakistan, beyond POK in Pakistani mainland. After the Pulwama suicide bombing, and now we've had Op Sindoor. Op Sindoor, in fact, tells us that this new normal, which has been evolving over almost a decade, has now been formalized. And this is summarized in 5 points by Jaishankar at the conclusion of his speech in Lok Sabha. So what are the 5 points? Number 1, terrorists will not be treated as proxies. What this means is that India will no longer accept that these are non-state actors, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, TRF, SHRF, PAF, whatever, People's Anti-Fascist Front, whatever new name they take, but terrorists coming from Pakistan will be seen as a part of the Pakistani establishment, the Pakistani military. That is something I have written about many times, that I have never seen them as non-state actors. In fact, you can Google my writings. I've always said that they are regiments of Pakistani special forces in mufti. It's just that they are not in uniform. That's formalized now. So terrorist attacks are the same as military attacks. Number 2, cross-border terrorism will get an appropriate response. That's very important. He has not said a military response. That's a consummate diplomat speaking. He has said an appropriate response, which means at any point of time, India should be able to choose from a buffet of options. That is also something that gives India a little bit of space from falling into what is called as a commitment trap. So you become too predictable. Point number 3, terror and talks are not possible together. They will only be talks on terror. That is setting the bar a little bit high for the Pakistanis, saying that, look, you want to talk to us? We'll talk about terrorism, then we'll see what happens afterwards. Otherwise, there is nothing to discuss. Number 4, not yielding to nuclear blackmail. That is something that started, I would say, with Pulwama/Balakot, that India is no longer afraid of the nuclear blackmail. Even this time, within the first few hours of Op Sindoor, Pakistanis had started reminding the world of their nuclear weapons and India's nuclear weapons. And that's always been the Pakistani way of attracting international attention, which I would say this time they were fairly successful in achieving, particularly because Donald Trump latched onto it. 2 nuclear weapons powers, maybe they were going to fight with nuclear weapons, etc. It just makes his headline a little bit better, but that suited Pakistan. But once again, point number 4, not yielding to nuclear blackmail. And point number 5, terror and good neighborliness cannot exist. Blood and water cannot flow together. Which means, and I am diplomatically and politically translating it, it means that a treaty like the Indus Waters Treaty can exist between good neighbors. If good neighborliness is missing on your side, then don't take anything for granted, even these treaties.